Welcome to the Middle School Cafe podcast, where we're serving up fresh strategies and solutions for ELA teachers just like you. Join us as we explore proven methods to bridge the achievement gap and help every student reach their full potential. Whether you're a veteran teacher or just starting out, grab a cup of coffee and a notepad and let's get started. Here's your host, Carolyn Wall.
Welcome, teachers! This is part 2 of a 2-part mini-series on teaching vocabulary. If you haven't already listened to part 1 of the mini-series, I highly recommend going back and checking that out first. In part 1, we talk about why vocabulary instruction is essential, how it impacts reading comprehension, writing, critical thinking, and student confidence. Today, we're diving into the how. If you've ever wondered how to integrate vocabulary instruction into your lessons without feeling like it's just another thing to add to your plate, this episode's for you. I'll be sharing practical, easy to implement strategies that help students not just learn new words, but actually understand them, use them, and remember them. And we're going to start by talking about how to create a vocabulary-rich classroom, because if students only see vocabulary words during a single lesson and then never again, they won't retain them. Instead, we want to build an environment where words matter, where students are surrounded by meaningful vocabulary every day. Let's talk about word walls. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, word walls, aren't those for elementary classrooms? Hear me out. Word walls can be incredibly powerful from middle school and even high school, if they're used with purpose. Too often, I see word walls treated as classroom decor. Words go up at the start of a unit and that's it. No interaction, no engagement, and no real impact. But when we use word walls intentionally, they become an active tool that helps students truly own their vocabulary. Here's why they work. Word walls provide constant exposure. We know that students need multiple interactions with a word before it sticks. Having key vocabulary words displayed in a visible place means they're not just seeing the words once and moving on. They're seeing words every day, which keeps them fresh in their minds. It also helps with word recognition. If students are regularly referencing the word wall, they're more likely to remember how to use those words correctly. But here's the thing. A word wall is only effective if we actually use it. If students never look at it, it's just another bulletin board. So instead of just slapping words on the wall, let's make it interactive. One way to do this is to have students contribute to the word wall. When a new vocabulary word comes up in class, ask a student to write it on a card or sticky note and add it to the wall. It doesn't have to be super fancy, just visible. Another way to make word walls engaging is to use them in daily activities. When students are writing, remind them to refer to the word wall. Use it almost like a word bank. If you're having a class discussion, challenge them to use at least one word from the wall in their responses. You could even do a quick warm-up where students have to explain a word from the wall in their own words, or start class with a mystery word, where students have to describe a word from the wall without saying it, and their classmates have to guess which one they're describing. Word walls are about consistent exposure. The more students see and interact with the words, the more likely they are to retain and use them. As we talked about in part 1, vocabulary instruction is most effective when it's taught in context rather than in isolation. Let's talk about contextual learning, or teaching vocabulary in the moment rather than as an isolated activity. When I talk about teaching a word in context, I don't mean teach a word when you happen to stumble upon a word students don't understand. I mean plan for it. You know when the word will pop up in the reading, so take the time to point it out and talk about it. One way to do this is to use the word detective strategy, but with a plan. Before starting the unit, identify key vocabulary words that are essential for understanding the text. Then, as students read, guide them to actively look for these specific words in the text. Instead of simply pre-teaching definitions, prompt students to highlight these words and use strategies like context clues and word parts to determine the meaning. Be sure to pause for vocabulary discussions at key moments in the text. If a word is crucial to understanding a theme, a character's motivation, or the historical setting, don't assume students will pick up on it. Make a point to stop and talk about it. Doing this not only helps students better understand the text, but it shows that words matter. The words that the author chooses make a difference in how the reader reads the text. For example, if your class is reading The Giver and they read the word release, instead of just giving them the definition, pause and have a discussion. What does the word release actually mean in the book? Why does the community use that word instead of something more direct? This not only teaches the vocabulary word, but it also deepens their understanding of the story itself. Think Pair Share is another way to encourage meaningful discussions with words. Rather than simply defining a word, this strategy invites students to explore its meaning and context with a partner before sharing their insights with the class. For example, if the word is persuasion, students might consider, how have they seen persuasion used in real life? Can they think of a time when they had to persuade someone? How might persuasion show up in the book they're reading? This approach makes vocabulary more than just memorization. It turns it into a meaningful conversation that helps students retain and apply new words in real-world situations. Let's go a little deeper. Let's shift to a strategy that helps students analyze words on a deeper level, like the Frayer model. If you are not familiar with the Frayer model, it is an organizer that helps students break down a word's meaning, find examples, and even create a visual representation for it. It helps the student not only see the word, but interact with it. There are 4 parts to the Frayer model organizer. 1. Putting the definition in their own words. 2. Providing examples. Students connect the word to real-world situations, characters, or concepts they already understand. 3. Identify non-examples. This reinforces understanding by clarifying what the word doesn't mean. And 4. Creating a visual representation. This could be a drawing, symbol, or even a scene from the book that represents the word's meaning. Creating the visual is just another way to help students learn and retain new words. The Frayer model is a powerful tool because it requires students to think about a word in multiple ways, leading to a deeper understanding. By engaging with the word from multiple angles, students internalize the meaning, making it more likely they will recognize and use it correctly in their own writing and discussions. Activities that break down a word are great for helping students engage with it, because seeing a word once isn't enough. Students need repeated, meaningful exposures to truly internalize a new word. A great way to build a vocabulary-rich classroom is by implementing a Word of the Week routine. It's a simple yet highly effective strategy, and I've made it part of my daily warm-up. Each Monday, I introduce one high-impact word. Sometimes it comes from our current reading or writing unit, and other times it's a challenge word, like an SAT word. Depending on the week, I might choose the word, or I'll let students pick one. The goal is to expose students to new, meaningful words and give them multiple opportunities to engage with it throughout the week. The key to making this strategy work is consistency and repetition. Students need to see a word multiple times in different contexts before it truly sticks. I challenge them to find real-world examples of the word outside of class. Maybe they hear it in a movie, see it in their own reading, or come across it in another class or textbook. When they do, they share it with the class, making vocabulary feel relevant instead of just another thing to do. To make it even more engaging, I turn it into a classroom challenge. I loosely keep track of how often students use the word in their writing and discussions throughout the week. I encourage students to point out when others use the word in our class discussions. This not only motivates students to use the word, but also strengthens their awareness of it. The more they interact with the word, both in speaking and listening, the more likely they are to retain and apply it long term. And the best part? This requires minimal prep work but has a huge impact on student vocabulary acquisition, reading comprehension, and confidence in using new words. Before we go, there's one last key piece to effective vocabulary instruction that we can't overlook, and that's repetition. No matter how engaging our strategies are, students need to encounter a word multiple times in different contexts before it truly sticks. One lesson or one discussion isn't enough. The more frequently students see, use, and engage with a word, the more likely they are to retain it long term and apply it naturally in their reading and writing. Repetition doesn't have to feel redundant, it just needs to be intentional. By weaving vocabulary into everyday routines, students get the consistent exposure they need to fully absorb and apply new words. If there's one thing I hope you take from this episode, it's that vocabulary instruction doesn't have to be another overwhelming task. It's not about memorizing endless word lists or cramming in extra lessons. It's about being intentional with the words we teach and making vocabulary a natural part of every unit. When students truly engage with words through reading, writing, discussion, and real-world connections, those words stick. The more they use and interact with vocabulary, the more it becomes part of their everyday language. And that's when we start to see real growth, not just in their vocabulary, but in their comprehension, communication, and confidence as learners. If you'd like some help implementing vocabulary instruction with minimal prep on your part, I have a freebie in my show notes, as well as a few links to other resources you may find helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you have a favorite vocabulary strategy, I'd love to hear it. Connect with me on social media or my website, and let's share ideas. Don't forget to share this podcast with fellow ELA teachers or leave a review. It just helps more teachers find us. Until next time. Thanks for joining me today. As a reminder, a new episode drops every first and third Tuesday, so be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Be sure to visit middleschoolcafe.com to find links to everything mentioned in today's show. Until next time.